about this topic, wellness in the aging workforce. It's something that comes up regularly, both with our current clients and with companies who are looking into wellness as a strategy to approach many issues within the workplace. And it's not really surprising given that 42% of workers in Canada are between the ages of 45 and 64. And also, now that we don't have mandatory retirement anymore in Canada, many people are choosing to work longer for a variety of reasons. And it's bringing up both opportunities for employers and also some challenges. So we want to talk about that a little bit this morning, and specifically as it applies to wellness. And who is it that we're talking about? Basically, we're talking about the boomers. They're a bubble generation in that there is a huge part of our culture that has been determined by the boomers as they've moved through different stages of life. They've had a lot of impact on our culture, definite economic impact as well. And they are very accustomed to being heard and to having sway within many factors of our culture. Let's just look a little bit about who they are from a personal perspective. So when we talk about boomers, they are defined as being born between 46 and 64. The majority of them either are on second marriages or perhaps are single again or still, but 25% of them have been married for longer than 25 years, and about half of them are empty nesters, so they don't have kids at home, which can present a lot of financial opportunities for them. They have some more freedom both time-wise and financially. A third of them are grandparents, and you will probably know who they are because you've probably seen pictures of their grandchildren at least once. And 77% of them are still employed, and 2/3 of those people are full-time. So when we're looking at a little bit more into what they do with their own time, they love to read, they shop online, they love a good deal. They're definitely the me generation, as in they're, like I said at the beginning, they're used to being heard and they're used to having impact in all sectors of their life. As most people get older, this generation is no different. They become a little bit nostalgic for the good old days or back when I first started working. We'll hear all those kinds of phrases kind of hearkening back to the good old days. Autonomy is key for this generation. They've had control, they like control, and they definitely want to keep their own personal autonomy as they move through the next stage of life. But they are very different from the previous generation. What it's like being 50 or 60 today is much better, healthier, more active than it was even 20 or 30 years ago. It impacts their work style in different ways. And let's not confuse internet savvy with tech savvy. That's something that's very different. They know how to surf around, probably shop online. They know how to shop through Amazon and those kinds of things, but that's not to be confused with being tech savvy. Change makes them very uncomfortable. Through the majority of their work life, things were pretty much the same for a few decades, and if something changed, it was a one-off or a short-term situation, and kind of once they got their heads around that and got comfortable with that new procedure or that new policy, they could rest assured that it was going to stay that way for quite a while. And that is not the workplace today, regardless of what sector you're in. Change is more the norm than things staying the same, and things are changing more rapidly, and a lot of changes towards that technological change, which can make the boomers very, very uncomfortable. They are overachievers, multitaskers. They're used to working long-term hours. They're the ones who worked through their life with that married to the company sort of mentality, especially if they're white collar, and they're very emotionally attached to their jobs, which is one thing that can make work-life balance a little bit of a struggle for this generation. Few things to keep in mind because things changed or things stayed the same for the majority of their work life. They don't see learning as something that is supposed to be fun. Their education system was very listen, read, memorize, repeat, and having a workplace where we are trying to make things more user-friendly, have a little bit of fun in the workplace, maybe, excuse me, maybe a lighter approach to advertising and those kind of things feels a little bit foreign to them. When something is meaningful and they need to understand something, communication has to be in person. And along with that, they have some trust issues when it comes to technology. They're the people who will come and check to make sure you got their email, or they're double checking Excel using an old-fashioned calculator. It's not quite something that they've integrated as technology being something that they can rely upon. They've been around for a really long time, and because of that, they can filter through hype, which is a really nice way of saying they can smell when something's off, and they know how to differentiate between rumor and when to get worked up about something, or when to get involved with something, and when to just kind of let it go by. So all of these issues definitely come into play when we talk about implementing a wellness program, and I'll get to that a little bit later. Why are these people working longer? There's a variety of reasons. Some of them it is personal enjoyment, because they are emotionally attached to their job, especially if they're white collar. They want to stay with that job. They want to see it through, so to speak. And for blue collar people, the personal enjoyment can sometimes be that social factor. They've worked with these people, for their coworkers, for a very long time, and they enjoy those interactions, and they haven't really thought about how to fill that bubble of time once they do retire. Another part is definitely if they don't have a good pension plan in place, or they haven't contributed in a way that allows them to retire with comfort or without anxiety, and even continuing their health benefits as they get older. If they are on meds, or they perceive that they're going to be on meds and they don't have coverage upon retirement, it can motivate them to stay working for a longer period of time. Of course, we don't have just older workers, we have younger workers as well. We've got the Gen Xers and the Gen Yers, and a few millennials probably, if you have some co-op students or part-time students who are working with you. And we can kind of think of them as the baby boomers are the call me generation, Gen Xers are the email me generation, and the Gen Yers are the text me generation. So just a few slides to help you think about why maybe some of those frictions might be happening in the workplace. And because of some of those frictions, this is how baby boomers can sometimes see that next generation. They're looking at their job. They don't trust the technology. They're a little leery of the whole fun environment, or trying to include different workers or customers or procedures in a way that is lighter in nature. And they're a little bit nervous about passing along that baton. They're not quite sure that the next generation is ready to take control in a way that they're comfortable with. And this is how we want it to happen. We want this generation, or the baby boomers, to be able to feel very comfortable passing the baton along to that next generation, who have a lot to offer because of they're very tech savvy. They thrive on change. They're all about inclusion. Yes, they have a stronger sense. They also are somewhat a me generation, in that when they're looking for a job, they're not just thinking about the hours and the pay, but they're also thinking about what's the work environment going to be like? What's my work-life balance going to be? How much fun am I going to have? What are the kind of people that are going to be working there? Which is a plus. And so in the best case scenario within your workplace, we have these two generations being very comfortable with each other, recognizing the benefits the other has to offer, and recognizing what it is that they can learn from each other. So let's look just a little bit before we get about how that can happen. Looking at the physicalities of the baby boomer generation. When we look at most of them, 85% are getting too few servings of fruits and vegetables on a daily basis. Most of them are overweight or obese. They don't really exercise a lot. They do experience stress. Whether or not they recognize it, that is somewhat of an issue. We're starting to break down the barriers around mental health and getting those conversations going. But boomers are not immune to those problems. Some of them are aware of stress. Some of them haven't quite labeled it as that because of the whole just work, 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 put your nose to the grindstone kind of mentality. But even given that that's what a lot of them are experiencing as to their physical and mental health, 80% of them, if they went to their doctor, said, yeah, I'm healthy. Because to them, if they're not off work or they're not in the hospital or going to the doctor for an acute purpose, they see themselves as being healthy. And being healthy and not being sick are two very different things. There are some costs that go along with having an aging workforce, and that's probably one of the motivators for many of you about getting on today's webinar. As people get older and they have more health issues that they're dealing with, you will see your benefit usage goes up, which means the cost is going to go up. Disability claims can be higher among the older generation. And even if they are at work, if they have a physically demanding job, there may be some accommodations that need to happen around their energy levels, their physical strength. They may not be able to cope with shift work the way they have in the past. And even backfilling those roles, if you have to move them to a different role and bring someone else to fill that previous role, that can be a cost that is difficult to put on paper, but it absolutely is there. So there is a cost with this workforce that we can address in a very proactive way. There's lots of different changes that happen as we age. Most people between 51 and 55 have about 20% less strength than when they were in their 30s. A decreased range of motion, or in other words, less flexibility around any given joint than was enjoyed in younger years, which affects joint health, more porous and less dense bones. But there are things that can help that. At any age, at any stage, if we start taking care of ourselves, gains can be made. Even with muscular strength, with cardiovascular ability, and so forth. If you address it in a proactive way, some kind of gains can be made. And resistance training gains can be made at any age. I always like to share that back in my personal training days, the oldest client I had was 92 years old, and yeah, he wasn't benching 150 pounds, but we started where it was appropriate for him, and we were able to see gains in as little as 6 weeks going forward. So it's possible. Stretching is going to give you gains with flexibility. Good nutrition has a huge part to play in your muscular health. And trying to get employees to understand that it's never too late. There is always a possibility. This set of boomers are open to that idea. That's where they're different from the previous generation and the generation before. They're not going to, quote, go quietly into that good night, unquote. They're looking at how can I make the most of these years going forward. With the cardiovascular system, our breathing capacity can go down as much as 40% if we don't engage in regular aerobic activity. With the thickening of the arteries comes a rise in blood pressure and stroke risk. Heart takes longer to return to resting. If it's not as fit as it used to be, anytime you stress it, it's going to take a little bit longer for your heart to recover. And aerobic exercise, again, that doesn't mean you've got to sign up for a marathon or you have to, start going to extreme boot camp class. It just means start where is appropriate for you and train your body to get stronger and to get healthier. Stress management, we know, has a huge part to play in heart health and taking care of how we handle those daily stressors. Sleep is an issue for a lot of boomers that as they go through stressful times, or even if things are kind of par for the course for them, getting sleep can become more difficult, and there are things that we can do to address sleep, such as aerobic activity. So this is where you start to see with a wellness program, if you address one aspect of health, targeting, say, aerobic exercise is going to have those peripheral benefits, such as stress management, such as helping them to get regular sleep. Becoming smoke-free stands to reason that that's good for your health, and also controlling weight. So I don't know where this guy works, but if he's in your workforce, I would really like to hear about it, because that picture always makes me smile. And of course, part of our physical changes is our ability with mental processes to learn new things, to retain information, to be able to recall that information when it's relevant and apply it to current situations. All of those kind of mental processes are going to vary quite greatly by the individual as we age. Just as some people are, super quick learners when they're young, that's not likely to change as we age. But we do know that whatever your ability is, given your genetic makeup, that exercise helps to increase your ability to and learn new information. Exercise increases blood flow to the brain, and it's all about the blood bringing in nutrients and taking away toxic or used substances. A healthy diet, 25% of your calories go to maintaining your brain and helping with those mental processes. So I always like to throw that in so people start to think about what it is they're eating, and think about that with your workforce too. If there are foods that are provided by you as an employer, whether it's in the cafeteria, vending machines, in departments or other meetings, think about what it is that you're feeding people, because 25% of that is going to their brain. Helping to minimize stress goes with our mental processes as well, getting enough sleep. And it's a use it or lose it environment, just as it is with aerobic capacity, just as it is with muscular strength. So everything we do to train our bodies and our minds to be stronger will have positive impact, because the good news is the majority of chronic conditions are preventable. When we look at 80% of type 2 diabetes, 80% of heart disease cases, and 40% of cancers have been directly linked to lifestyle behaviors. Not in any way as an it's your fault kind of way, but more in okay, what I am doing for my body and how we are helping our employees is going to have long-term impact. What do we want that long-term impact to look like? Most people know that they should pretty much be eating better and working out. The difficulty is in getting started and in staying motivated. Just do a quick kind of thinking about who it is that's in your workplace. And yes, we always, at EWS Network, before we implement any program, we definitely do an analysis of the company so that we can identify top needs, top risks, top opportunities. But you can always just do a quick thinking about how many people, if you were to do a walkthrough, are carrying excess weight in their midsection, or have high cholesterol, high blood pressure, have a history of family heart disease or stroke. How many people are exercising 3 times a week, or eating right, or managing their stress on a daily basis? Another quick analysis you can do, if you were to see, let's say there's a flow of people who come in at 9 or walk through the parking lot, you can probably notice that the people who stand out are the ones who walk the quickest. So sometimes it's easier to do a quick analysis just in your mind of who is obviously, it's not always obvious, but who kind of obviously stands out as somebody who takes care of themselves. And then when you're implementing a wellness program, who are the other people who need help? The benefit of a wellness program as far as getting those generations to talk to each other is it gives a common positive topic of discussion across the generations. Portion control is portion control, regardless of what your age is. Enjoying a smoothie or not enjoying a smoothie is the same across the generations. Talking about stress management is the same across the generations, and helps people to understand each other a little bit better. There's that saying that if you don't know someone, if you don't like someone, you probably just don't know them well enough. And thinking about that in a workplace environment, encouraging those generations to talk to each other. Sometimes about work issues can be a little confrontational, or different views or different opinions on how to do things. But when it comes to wellness, it's outside of that. It's neutral territory, and it can become a good meeting place or a platform for these people to get to know each other and start fostering some understanding of their coworkers. A wellness program absolutely helps to change the norm. Let's shift the norm from everybody going outside to the smoking area for a smoke break to people sitting down and enjoying a healthy snack together in the cafeteria. And not that you'll get everybody, but again, a strategic, regular approach. That's what we want to see, is a shifting away from the normal or the accepted or the default activities of unhealthy activities, unhealthy foods, to becoming the norm of positive changes, of positive activities, of good foods, and of movement. You're thinking about some group programs. A pedometer challenge, you'll see some differences in that the Gen Xers and Gen Ys are going to probably download an app onto their phone. The boomers are going to want an old-fashioned pedometer because that's what they're comfortable with. Weight loss programs gives each other a chance to, even sometimes just complaining about something together. They say nothing makes good friends like a common enemy. Well, if you've got somebody in different generations who can kind of in a fun, joking way complain about how on earth they expect me to get 10,000 steps today. Like, don't they know I've got 8 meetings? I know, me too. It helps people just to get to know each other a little better. Let's get into kind of some meat about how you actually address the aging workforce with wellness. The core purpose of a wellness program is to reach the uninterested, the unconverted, and the unmotivated. So how do we do that? Think of a few people in your workforce who you really would like to see get involved. With the boomers, everything you do, we have to have that foundation of respect. Remember, autonomy and control is important to them. We need to meet them where they are. So what is important to them? It's less about losing weight and more about energy and vitality. They're not concerned about getting their, quote, beach body ready for the summer. That's just not on their horizon. They're interested about what they can do to enjoy day to day. Doesn't mean they don't want to lose weight, but let's focus on more energy, vitality, health, and those kind of things. Remember, they don't like to learn. For them, especially with technology, we need to go really light and easy on the virtual resources, because the boomers learned technology at work. It was something that was forced upon them. Whereas the Gen Xers, and even more so the Gen Ys, they learned it in a fun environment. They learned it at school. They go home and play with it. The boomers aren't doing that. So we have to keep that in mind when it comes to wellness. And they like the face-to-face. That's absolutely important for them to get a message across, and also to give them that respect and get information from them. So we need to be aware of that and give them that personal touch. They're not really interested in brand new concepts at this stage in their life. It's more about modifications. So we're not going to talk about tofu necessarily, but see if we can get them to eat a little less meat, or see if we can get them to start enjoying some homemade soups with less salt. That's just a really, really simple example of trying to not completely give them whiplash about new ideas, but more what are they doing and how can we change that to a healthier approach. And that is why, with the one-on-one help, that's a foundation of our program, is going to the employees individually to help them with whatever it is that is important to them. And the boomers really, really grasp this concept. They like the fact that it's simple. They like the fact they don't have to log on. They don't have to sift through a whole bunch of information. It is one person who's giving them full control over what their goals are and helping them with small steps in order to modify their changes, to be healthier, to be more vital, have more energy, sleep better, and all of those issues that are going to be important to them as they move through the next stage of life. Walkabouts also taking information to people instead of expecting them to come to you, if we go to them, they understand that this is a core value of the company. They understand that there is a real commitment from the company to reach out to them and help them with their wellness goals. They're really good at filtering hype, and so having that personal outreach and the consistency will give them faith within the wellness program in and of itself, because having a once in a while kind of thing gives it that flavor of the month feel that is they see that really quickly, the boomers, and they don't trust it if they don't sense that it is becoming an integrated part of the workplace culture. We need to remember as well that wellness is a natural progression over time. Boomers are like everybody else. They move through the stages of change just like other people do, but they need us to approach it in a way that respects who they are. They're not really big on the online resources or a lot of virtuals or apps or sign up for this. They're more face-to-face contact. They need to see the consistency of the program so that they have faith that it's going to be an ongoing part of the workplace culture, and help nurture them through those stages of change and give them that support. And that's why, oftentimes we'll get the question of, how do we, some employers are looking to try and move their employees who aren't retiring. They would actually like to see them move into that retirement stage, which is why we developed a program called Training for Retirement, which is a 6-month track of programming to help employees start to think about, okay, what is retirement going to look like? What am I going to do with that time? How am I going to continue to feel vital and important and feel like I'm contributing? What's that going to look like financially? How do I prepare for that? What are some of the obstacles and how am I going to overcome that? And these kinds of changes with boomers, just as with all people, healthy lifestyle changes are not to be seen overnight. It's something where we need to make the commitment and remember that everybody is unique, and we need to keep that strategic approach so that over time, month in, month out, we can start to have a positive effect on all sectors of the workforce, and specifically with those aging workers, and help them to, while they're at work, be as vital and as productive and engaged as they possibly can be, so that they can pass all that wealth of information over to our next generation. Garth, did you want to open it up for questions? Because we are pretty much right at the 11:30 mark. And just while Garth looks at any questions, if anybody does want to talk to me specifically or has questions that they'd like me to address, I've got my contact information. You can always let me know, and I'd be happy to talk to you about today's information.
Good, thanks, Leah. Yeah, great information. I did have a couple questions come through. One of them you kind of touched on near the end there. I'd like you to maybe expand on it a bit more. And then if anyone does want to ask any questions, just enter it in through the question box there or through the chat line, and I'll get them done. Or if you have any questions later on, just email them in to us. We'd like to try and encourage some older workers to retire. So I know you touched on that, but how are some other ways to help do that? And while we're going through the questions here, I'm just going to grab the presentation over so we can put up those different dates while you're answering some of the questions.
Okay, sounds good. If you have the kind of relationship with that individual where you can address them personally and, in a very appropriate way, find out what their retirement plans are. What are you thinking about retirement? Have you thought about a timeline? And find out what their hesitancy is, and then maybe you can help them with that hesitancy. If it's a financial one, drawing some clarity around what their pension looks like, what their benefits look like, if they do or do not have those available to them, maybe finding some community resources where somebody can help them, whether it's a financial plan or otherwise. I mean, if they're 64 and they haven't started contributing to an RSP, obviously that's not going to be the solution for them, but perhaps finding somebody who can help them with the budget. If their hesitancy is, you know what, I've had this role in my company and I don't really see any succession plan for somebody to take it over, then maybe putting a plan in place. Or if they do want to still have some kind of social connection or some kind of meaningful connection with work, is job sharing an option, or is a part-time environment something that might work for them? So the easiest way to get them to move to retirement is to find out what those obstacles are, if you can, and then help them with those.
Okay, perfect. Thanks. Another question I had that just actually came in is the question that we always get is, there's no budget. Where can I
Yeah.
start?
Mm-hmm. I would suggest, if you have no budget and you want to get something started, is to put together a wellness committee. And how that plays with the baby boomers is make sure there's at least a couple of boomers who are on your committee. And if you have different sectors, in other words, if there's a few different locations, do you want a committee at each location, or do you want one committee and have representatives from each location on that committee? And there are some people that you can get to come in and do lunch and learn, such as the Heart and Stroke Foundation, the Cancer Foundation. Those kinds of people are always willing to come in and talk to your work group. But having this age group represented on that wellness committee is a good place to start. And again, I underline, it has to be consistent. That doesn't mean you have to do something every single month. It means looking very honestly at what your time resources are, because putting time towards it is putting money towards it, right? You're all getting paid to be there today. And so what resources are you honestly going to put? So saying, well, you know what, let's do something once a quarter, and then make it consistent, as in it's always the first Wednesday of the quarter, or whatever it happens to be. We have a newsletter. You can always sign up for our newsletter. That's something that you can share. But just trying to think about what you can do, and then look out to community, see what is available upon occasion to bring them in, but getting that two-way communication from the aging workforce so that you're doing things that are relevant to their needs, their wants.
Good, perfect. Yeah, and I know it just flipped over from the other one, but in January, for those who have a limited budget, may be a really good area or webinar to tie into, because it is one that is a platform that you can run by yourself as well. So, and just use EWS Network or others, whether it be your benefit consultant or whoever, as merely just a consultant to help you out with it as well. So I have one more here before we get done. I have a lot of older workers who are heavy smokers. Do you have any ideas?
Yeah, tell them to stop. That's just what we do, and they stop immediately. With older workers, smoking is really tough because they've been doing it for a really, really long time, and there can be a strong social connection for them about why they're smoking at work, because all of their buddies go out at a certain time to smoke, and so that's why they go. Giving them, everybody knows that they need to quit smoking. Nobody's in denial. Let's put it that way. And we always consider it kind of an Mount Everest of wellness challenges, is getting to people, getting them to quit smoking. So really the only thing you can do is just continue to share information in a very non-nagging way. In other words, telling people, you really need to quit. That's going to kill you, like they've heard that a million times. And again, giving them that respect. And you know what? Give them, if they're not willing to quit smoking, well, we don't give up on them. Maybe there's something else they are interested in. If they're interested in help with whether it's sleep or whether it's nutrition or other things, if you can get their faith in other wellness initiatives, then you've kind of got an in to help them with the non-smoking when they're ready, and try and just share information in a very non-confrontational way to help get them ready.
Great. Yeah. And one more point, like I get a lot of stories in from our consultants, and it's surprising, or not surprising once you start hearing them, but going back to that slide that Leah was sharing about that natural progression over time, is I have more stories come in about people quitting smoking based on their wellness journey, and I'll call more around fitness and nutrition, than a traditional smoking cessation program.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
I
Yeah,
did have, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was going to say I know I had a consultant who went out to the smoking area to share about the upcoming smoking cessation program, and as they see her coming out, they kind of close ranks. And one person was, let's just say, very vocal about their feelings against joining the smoking cessation program, and her response was, "That's fine. I've also got some information here about how to have that conversation to tell people I'm not ready to quit yet. Do you want to talk about what that looks like?" And she said that his eyes just got really, because that was not what he was expecting, and it kind of broke down that barrier and allowed that person to feel comfortable then talking about other aspects of their health.
I had one other that just came through. It sort of ties into the initial question about the retirement. Trying to find out retirement plans isn't an easy conversation to start. Any suggestions?
Yeah, and that's where you do have to be very, very careful. If check within your HR department if that's not your specific role, but find out if there are policies around what you can or cannot ask people. And the gentlest way I can think of to start that conversation is, so like, what are your, ask them what their plans are within the company. Like, do you have any goals within the company about places you'd like to go or other opportunities you'd like to explore? What are you thinking around timelines? And try and go maybe from another avenue to get them thinking about that, and then hopefully they will bring it up. But you're right, it is a very soft conversation for sure.
Good, lots of great information. So I thank you very much, Leah, for your time today and putting this together. I think everyone, since 90% of the people are still on the on the line here today, we are recording it, so we will get this out to you. I know I had about 3 or 4 different emails just in the last 10 minutes saying I had tech problems, I couldn't get on. So is it being recorded? Yes, it is. So please do feel free to share it. We do, just to let you know though as well, in the same registration link, which is ewsnetwork.com/webinar, is we are having another one on Thursday at the same time, so you can register for that or share that out with other people. Just a reminder again, make sure you do mark these weeks, dates. I do believe it's going to be March 8th and 10th for that webinar, and then we're leaning toward the last week or so of January for this webinar with Health Connected. So I do appreciate everyone coming on the line. Please do get your questions in if you do have any more. We'll be getting the next webinar registration out the first of the year. So have a great new year. We look forward to hearing from you, and thank you very much for attending.